So one Sunday we were in Nairobi Chapel, the next Sunday we were Mavuno.
And why Mavuno?
Mavuno is a weird name. Huh? There's no church that had a name like that. I mean, it was Saint somebody or, some Celestine. You're looking for some godly name. But it was so funny because we really wanted a name that talked about the people we're trying to reach. And wanted a name that would say, this is your church, And I remember at that point, and it would say that expect something different because names are important. It says, as you come in, this isn't going to be what you're expecting. So come in with an open mind. So we had a bunch of names on the screen. We had with a founding team because we were a team. And Kanji was on that team, Pastor Linda, Pastor Simon. There's a few of us who became the original team. And
Pastor Kiama, was he there?
No, he wasn't there then because Pastor Kiama was actually abroad at that point.
Okay.
He was in the US doing a year of internship with another church. And so we're doing our brainstorm and we eliminate names. You know how you do our brainstorming. You put all your brainstorm names and then you're eliminating, this one won't work, this one won't work. So we're left with two names. And one was Refuge. So it's going to be like Refuge Church. And for me, I felt this church needs to be a safe space where you feel I'm not coming to be judged. I'm coming as I am, But we had also picked Mavuno, and Mavuno just meant it's about the harvest.
Yeah.
It's a more vibrant, dynamic. But I was kind of leaning towards Refuge, more
English,
my conservative side. A few of the guys felt so. These ones were the two we couldn't decide. So I remember just at that point, just telling guys, it was late, man. We've been here the whole day, guys. We need to pick a name. Let's just pick a name. Whichever name, we'll just die with it. I don't think... I'm one of those guys where I'm like, God is going to bless whichever choice. God gave us the mind. I'm not one of those guys who's like, God has to tell you everything. It's like God gave you a mind so that you can think. And so I'm like, God's given us a mind. Let's pick one of these. They're both good names. So I remember just telling guys, either we pick... And I pointed at Mavuno. Boom. Now, what had been happening outside the window, there was a donkey. There'd been a donkey the whole day grazing, very quietly. The minute I touched the name Mavuno, it made this outrageous sound. Like we'd never had a donkey doing that. It was like a scream. And then, it was crazy. Yeah? And then it stopped and went on eating grass. So we looked at each other like, Sao. And Mavuno it was.
The donkey.
Yeah, that's a spiritual reason why we came on the donkey spoke.
The donkey spoke.
That's a spiritual reason why we picked the name of Mavuno. But it was a good. It's been a good name, and I feel like it has a vibrancy to it. It has a uniqueness to it. It served us well over the years. What had happened is, I remember I talked about 5 services. Each of us was allocated one of those services. So in that 1 year, I led one service. And I deliberately chose the 12 o'clock service on a Sunday. And for me, I liked it because that's a service when guys have had a hangover and they still want to come to church. 12 is not too bad. And so that service had begun to take on a flavor about it. And when we moved to Mavuno now, we were able to really lean into what that flavor would be. One of the people who played a huge role in who Mavuno became was, I mentioned the founding pastors. Each of them had a very unique role that they played. So someone like Kanji, forever indebted to all of them. He shaped our music, our excellence, our arts culture in a very strong way. Pastor Simon shaped our prophetic prayer culture. And for me, that's a beauty, is when you have those two things. People come into Mavuno expecting it to be shallow and it's frothy and just entertainment. And then they're like, whoa, what just happened there? Because it's a very strong spiritual encounter. And I feel for me, those two are very important. As you're trying to reach people who don't like church, they need to come in and it's easy. And I enjoy this and I'm not feeling threatened on the spot. I can actually relate to the music they're singing, which to a church person, they probably hate it because it's not their music. But at some point, God checks in. And they're like, there's something transcendent that just happened that I can't explain with my senses. And I think that's what God wants. He wants to speak in your language, but he wants to enter into your space. And I feel like those two guys helped us bridge that very well. Pastor Linda's strength was teaching. And so she has a very strong bent for just biblical teaching. And that became a very strong suit for us as well. I think my job was just to hold these guys together and make sure they don't run over each other. You know, keep everybody focused on where God was calling us to go, and keep us loving the people that God has called us to love. So we began. I mean, I remember just beginning and being shocked that people actually, because we did our research.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, I was like, why is it that when guys come to church, they're so chilled? They're so uneasy. It's like going to a funeral. You know, it's like you're trying not to do the wrong thing. It doesn't feel them. Then you go to the same guy, the night before at the club, he was on a table shouting at the top of his lungs. I was like, why is that dissonance? Who's the real person here? And I'm like, the guy in the club is actually being himself. The guy in church is fake. Look at how he dresses. In the club, he puts on the clothes that are most comfortable. When he goes to church, he puts on the clothes that he would never wear. You know, he doesn't even it's like, I just have to wear them because it's my Sunday best, you know? And so just looking at that and saying, for us to really reach these guys, we have to get beyond the surface and go to the real person. And so I got my team go to a nightclub and just check guys and say, how do we get guys to be like that? You know, in the nightclub, when guys have taken a few pints, they are real. They talk. I mean, my wife, Nini. I'm like, how come guys don't talk like this in church? What's wrong? What are we doing wrong? Go to a sports game. We went to sports games. And you find when your team scores, you're hugging strangers. It's like, wow, you're crying. I'm like, this is what church should be, man. I mean, it's love, it's together, it's like our team. But when you're in church, that isn't the case. So we began to ask, what does it take for church to be that? You know, that place where you come in, instant, you find your family, you find your tribe, you want to die together, you love these people, and it makes sense for you. You know, it's your language. So we began to do experiments, you know, and those experiments, I mean, first of all, they had two different results. Church people hated them. So we got a lot of flack those early days. People say the music.
Even before you enter the flack and the thing, that for me is what I found as an internal person who spent some time working at Mavuno, the understanding of the demographic. The fact that you're able, I mean, let me just be real, it was corporate, where you're able to enter and say, this is the person we're targeting, this is how the person speaks, this is the kind of money the person makes, this is the kind of thing. We
did our demographic surveys, found out who we're reaching, we gave them names.
Mike and
McKenna, we figured them out. And it's like, this is where they go, this is what they listen to. So we're like, our music needs to be connected to what they're listening to, you know? Their sense of coming here has to make them feel like it's a continuation of their lifestyle. So we did that. And I remember just being shocked. I mean, I remember the early days at Mavuno, just in shock, literally every day in church, because I'd be standing at the door and guys would be telling me, do you know who that guy is? Like, he owns the most popular pub in the city. Do you know who that guy is? It's like people were coming who did not have any business being in church.
Yeah.
And that's what told me there's something right that we were doing. We were reaching the people we're supposed to be reaching. You see, Jesus was surrounded by tax collectors and sinners, prostitutes, the people who had no business being in church. And for me, that's my greatest joy. Whenever I see that happening at Mavuno, I always feel like we're close to where we're supposed to be. This is who God has called us to reach.
I think Mavuno is it's exciting. You don't like swatch in church. You know you're excited all through the service. It's great to be at Mavuno.
Awesome. Praise and worship.
Down to earth.
Worship is amazing.
Where real issues are handled.
They are not shy about how they approach real life issues.
What do you like about Mavuno?
The samosas.
I love it. I love the name. I love the passes. I love the worship team. I love the way we are real.
It's nice. The teachers are nice and they teach you well.
Mavuno is good. We are real.
About Mavuno, I like the music.
I like because of the services. It's very good and educational.
Because it has good children.
The little children.
Yes.
The praise and worship.
It's fun.
Nimebarikiwa sana realized, yeah.
Mavuno is just great. The community, the scripture teaching.
It takes care of everybody.
Great music, great preaching, and a great congregation, great community. Yeah.
I like the layout. I mean, it's a very cool. I like the ambience, the lighting, the sound is good.
Mavuno is very vibrant. Oh, it's a family. That's what I like about it.
Yeah, it's a place where you hook up with God in fantastic ways.
It's the love.
The music, the people, the word, it's my home, it's my family.
With the camp and we're moving to a new land, which will be great.
The music, the worship is fantastic. Mavuno has changed my life, my prayer life. I just love the community, the ecclesias.
Very good food.
I like the music, I like the preaching, I like the people.
Mavuno for me is a place where I link up with people.
This is what's happening in Nairobi, and we invite all of you out there to come and join us.
I love everything about this church.
This ain't your grandma's church.
Your grandma's church.
Say that again.
It ain't your grandma's church.
One more time.
This ain't your grandma's church.
Hallelujah.
That's enough.
So that became our joy now, is to reach those guys. So we began to do things that, I mean, we did take backs. We'd do songs that were the popular songs, and we'd put gospel words to them. And for me, the interesting,
that got flack, of course,
from the church, but from the guys who were reaching. And for me, that's what I think my job was, to keep the team focused on. Guys, this is who we're reaching. So keep listening to who you're reaching. If it offends the people you're reaching, there's a problem. Because I feel like the gospel itself has an offense. Jesus' words are not
politically correct.
Oh, so sweet, or I'm here to make you rich. Jesus isn't like that. Jesus is like, I've come to mess your life. I've come to take you out of your selfishness and show you why I made you. I've got a plan and a purpose for your life, and it's going to destroy all those little dreams that you're dreaming and give you a reason to live. And that reason might even make you suffer, but it's going to be what I created you for. That's radical. So
it's offensive.
It's offensive. So the church needs to remove its own offense so that people can actually encounter the offense of Jesus himself. Because that's the offense they should be dealing with. But the problem is they're dealing with our offense. So they're not even getting to the offense of the gospel. They're dealing with the fact that we're playing music for ourselves. We're thinking about ourselves. We're speaking language that only we can understand. So we need to remove this offense and allow people to actually encounter the real offense of the gospel. And that's what I kept my team focused on. Okay, guys, let's keep the message core. This is who we're reaching. Yeah.
That's insane. I'll tell you how I joined Mavuno. I joined Mavuno about this time. I'm newly saved. I'm that example of that person you're just talking about.
Yeah.
Love Jesus, trying to find Jesus. I know I love Jesus, that I found him in my own space.
In your space, yeah.
But I'm hoping, and God has told me to become a rapper. So you can imagine me going to churches and telling them, "Maybe I've been told to become a rapper."
Those days, rap, what is that? That's of hell.
That's insane.
That's the devil's music.
That's I don't know, but that's all I know. I've been told. So somehow, my first encounter meeting you was the craziest thing, because I tell you what it is, and you're like, okay, now next Sunday, can we co-preach together? I'm a 24-year-old, and you tell me, can you jump on stage with me? And I want to do a sermon called "This Ain't Your Grandmother's Church."
Yep, I remember that.
I was so confused. Yeah. I'm trying to convince people that I love Jesus. And so when I'm talking about radicalness, that automatically made me feel accepted, made me feel home, made me feel supported. And then I was being told, okay, now you're rapping, this is what I'm going to do for it on top of that. You keep rapping, we're going to open up doors for you, you're going to go to high schools. So I found that now retrospect, looking back, I can be like, yo, this was radical. I've had conversations with some musicians who were in that space, Cheesy, for example. Despite the joys, despite the pain, there's some things that he says for me which stand out very radical. Like, for example, him saying, you come in, and after that, you will get equipment from the church. Yeah. That you can own the equipment, which is equipment that he owns right now. So you are radical in the outreach element, and that led to growth.
And the issue was, do what it takes to reach the people God wants to reach. Because Jesus says, I didn't come to reach those who are churched. I didn't come to reach those who are already safe. I came to reach the guys who are lost. And so the church can't be here. I can't be starting a church to try and reach all the guys in other churches. I'm like, those ones are good. I'm so happy that you're happy, But there's a whole bunch. Nairobi is an unchurched city. We often don't get it. Yeah. But Nairobi is a completely unchurched city. Statistics tell us that maybe 90% of Nairobi does not go to church.
does not
go to church. 90%. I mean, how dare we be arguing about a little 10%? The market share is with the devil. For me, in my view, the other side is the market leader. The church is not the market leader. And the sooner we get that into our heads, the better, because you've got a message that actually can change lives. You've got a product, if you want to use that language, that actually is what the masses need. Everybody needs this product. But you're so busy selling it to yourselves and to your regular, already converted people that you're not actually asking, how do the people who really need this message get it? And I think that's what God really put on our hearts. No, don't be about the 10%, be about the 90% in everything you do.
But now, again, I want us to enter a bit of leadership, because I found this a bit impressive. Especially a lot of these questions now I'm not asking as a 24-year-old.
Yeah.
I didn't understand 90% of what was happening. I loved it.
You enjoyed it?
I loved it. But now in retrospect,
it was your language.
Yes, I can be like, this was crazy as a leader. You get as a business leader or as a church leader.
Yeah.
Or as a person leading people. For example, the Mavuno Worship Project. I mean, how does a small group of 300, 400, 500 people create a product that completely changes East Africa and radically enough to say, let's record the first live DVD, CD recording when a church is probably 2 or 3 years old?
Yeah.
Welcome to the Mavuno Worship Project. I'm really glad that you're getting a chance to watch this. I believe that God is doing an amazing thing on the continent of Africa. He's restoring hope and confidence that have been missing from this continent since the times of colonization. And He's raising up a new generation, a generation that is gifted and that is passionate. And I believe that this generation will be a blessing not just to Africa, but to the continent of the world as well. We are part of that generation. And our message is this, that because the unchanging God is at work here on the continent of Africa, then the words of Isaiah chapter 60 verse 1 are true for our generation. Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of God is risen upon you. Nothing can stop us. What you're about to see is as a result of many months of prayer and preparation. And our prayer and our hope is that as you watch it, your heart will be warmed, that you'll be encouraged, and that maybe you'll even begin to ask, what is your role in the things that God is doing in building up the continent of Africa? You see, Africa, it's time for you to arise, for your time has come, and God's glory is risen.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's give it up right now for Kanji Mbogwa and the Mavuno worship team. All right, people. Yes.
Yeah. I think what happened is there was such a hunger for what we were doing, that even the artists, the Kanji had a whole tribe of people around him. And they were finally getting an expression where the church wasn't telling them what to do. The church was asking them, what can you do? Because one of the things when I asked Kanji to be our worship pastor, Kanji wasn't a pastor. He was far from it. He was not even a gospel. He was a gospel musician, but he was more like a pop musician.
Afrofusion.
Exactly. So when I asked him to be a worship pastor, that was not in where he was heading. But it's interesting, God had already been preparing him for it. But he told me, are you ready for what I can do? Do you really want me to do this? Because it means you actually allow me to do it. And for me, I'm like, dude, yeah, tell me what we need to do. You know the mission. You know where we're heading. You define it. And I think that was the thing. By not trying to tell people the what, we told people the why. Here's what we're doing. Now you tell us how to do it. And I think that's why so many artists got expression. So many people found a way to bring in their strengths and to actually help us pass this message. But there was a big revolution, and it had a big impact, like you say. I think what kept me even going at that point is the stories. For me, it's always about stories. And I think for a leader, when you're facing criticism, when you're facing challenges, you have to keep the main thing, which is why are we doing this? And every week, there'll be Mavuno stories. Every week, those stories would just be like, if we only did this church for this one person, it was worth it, I remember one guy who came to church because in the rave at 3, when you get really open, because now you've drunk enough to lose all inhibition, he told his boy his problems. And his boy looked at him and told him, dude, there's a church for guys like you, Bana. You need to go to Mavuno. I hear they help guys like you. I mean, yeah, the guy was in Paka, even his boy was like, I can't help you. But there are some guys called Mavuno, I've heard.
Yeah.
They can help you. So that next morning, the guy rolled his car into Bellevue, where we were at that point, parked his car in the parking lot, promptly blacked out. Woke up at 1 when everybody had driven out of church. Like, he missed the service. That's how high he was. So it was like, dang. So he went home. The next night, he left the rave earlier, and so that he could make it for the service. So he came for the service. This time he didn't sleep. Actually walked into church. Was so riveted by what he heard that he was like, I need to join this. So we were talking about Mizizi. So he joined that course. Completely changed his life, discovered his purpose, got focused, stopped drinking, gave his life to Christ, became passionate, got married. So I meet him years later in Uganda because I'm visiting our church in Kampala, and he's one of the leaders. And I asked him, what's your Mavuno story? And that's the story he tells me.
Whoa.
Like, this is one of our leaders now. He's doing some major things, impacting lives. But he's like, I came to Mavuno because there's a church for guys that would accept guys like me. You know? Recently I was in one of our churches not too long ago where somebody was sharing how she walked into church and there was somebody who was obviously high and had come from the rave, smelling still of the rave, and how she wasn't even a Christian. But she was so angry because the Mavuno guys didn't stare at this guy. They didn't make him feel... In fact, people came and when there was like minutes of friendship, people came and shook his hand. It's like, it's similar to my story with Joe. She was a bit pissed. She was like, what's wrong with this church?
Yeah.
And at some point she was like, wow, if they don't judge this guy, it probably means they won't judge me. And so I feel like for me, when I hear those stories, when I see the radical transformation stories at Mavuno, it makes me like, yeah, I think it's worth it. It's been worth it. Yeah.
Okay, let's backtrack a bit, even before we talk about, because there's two things I want to ask. I want to ask about the move from this small congregation of about 300-400 people to radically exploding and being a mention in news features, in everything, in Bellevue, in the church to go to.
Yeah.
But before that, I want to ask about Mizizi, because that is the secret tool that has been used.
Oh, it's an important part of the story.